If you're not muted, mute unless you're John.
Okay, I see Mr. Sun, Mr. Sanchi Liu.
Okay. So I'm assuming, I don't see the screen that's shared, but I'm assuming you are.
I see fourth old style code in a separate window.
Right. Yep. And it should have started here, but it didn't.
It says 1 of 14. There it is.
Paul wrote his paper. Some of you saw it. I noticed in SVFIG that people had seen it. So here I'm going to start you off with a problem. He found an early error in this following code. How quickly can you find why he knew that the author of this code didn't check each word as it was compiled, didn't test each one? So call out when you see an error.
We only see the code down to the word quarter.
It's only the first 4 words are here. That's all that's there. And anybody spot it? It takes a little thinking. And the simplest way is actually to, is to actually grab, I don't know if you guys can grab the code from here or not, but put it and compile it. No.
I just executed each one of them and I found he wasn't picking up the plural.
Okay. It's even before that. You've got to execute a word just one at a time, and what did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to put I love this laser pointer thing that they provide. Well, the problem is in Penny, is that it's not supposed to return anything. And so it does a dupe, and then this dot gets rid of the duplicated item on the stack. Here it's duplicated and tested. And on the if side, it destroys it. But if it was 0, it comes through here and it leaves a 0 on the stack. So that he clearly didn't test them at all to find out what's going on. And these were Paul's comments. And I found this one is the most important. But he didn't include, his other 3 comments were mostly about the formatting and the commenting and so on. He didn't include points that I've learned that I thought were pretty important. The most basic one is that each word should only do one thing. And in this code, it's accumulating, and each word is doing more and more as he moves down toward the bottom. So I sat down with it and typed them in, just the definition, typed it and tested it. Very quickly, I had things that worked. And I noticed that they'd included commas, so I pulled that out. And I had never seen this MCC measure of complexity thing before, and it's just each definition gets starts with a 1, and then 2 times the number of control structures in it as a simple measure of complexity. And I like that, so I did it. And here is the code that I came up with in less than an hour. And I just did it. Now what I wanted to do, and I need to go back to, I can't do it from the presenting stuff, so I'm going to be really informal here and get rid of that one and bring this one. Where are you? There you are. Bring this one back, because I can just go and select all of that and stick it into SwiftForth and have it run. So I define the words. The average is 3.6. Paul says he tries to keep it under 7. So I thought that was pretty reasonable. And then I just created a display word and put it out. And that's what it shows for each of the things that it's running. Now that was all well and good. And I had decided to do the bills as well, but that code really upset my editorial side. And I wanted a period at the end of the sentence, and I wanted an and in there, the Oxford and. Each of putting the comma in, go back up to this one, putting the comma in requires knowing whether there are going to be any terms after the current one. And you can do that by looking at the remainder. If the remainder is 0, it isn't. But if it's non-zero, there's going to be another term, and so you can put a comma out. And you do that, you notice it's after each one. And because it was just the change for less than $1, my names show which ones could have more than one. It can only have a single $50, but you could have multiple dimes and multiple pennies. And they're passing on the remainder until it gets to pennies, and penny dropped it. So I also got excited about adding a compiling word. So the next version of this code, these are the support words. 0 exit. How can I do that here? I can just do it that way. And what happened? Oh, I can't get my laser pointer again because I'm actually in this screen. You can all see the screen though, right? David? Yeah.
Mhm.
So this
We
thing,
can see your mouse.
you can see my mouse, yeah. 0 exit in places at compile time, it puts in the stuff to do. That's something I also learned from ColorForth. Whatever you can do at compile time is good. Try to make things happen then rather than making the decisions at runtime. And then the crazy word and, dot and, is possibly inserting it. Items is keeping track of what's already been displayed. So when I get down, let's go take a look at this. Now, 50/mod 0 exit, there's no if, because it's all contained in here. If the result of the /mod is a 0, it leaves. And so here the remainder is guaranteed to be non-zero, greater than 0. And so I check it for the and. I have to do the and before, because I'm not doing it afterwards. I'm not doing the comma afterwards. And the and is going to put out the and and the comma, $half, and then I check to see where I'm done, and that'll put a period if it's the last one. So that went through really quite nicely. What does and do? And looks to see first are there any items, any terms prior to this one? If there aren't any, it can't possibly have an and or a comma, so it exits. If there are, it puts a comma. Oh, no, what it's checking here, the if is checking the remainder. If there are still more terms to come, all it's going to do is put a comma before my current term. And if there are no more terms to come, if the one that I'm on is the last one, now I need to find out how many are in front of me. If there are if there's only one in front of me, well, no, one minus. If there's more than one, this is going to have more than one, and it's just going to put a comma, or it's going to put the comma. If there is only one in front of me, it's not going to put out a comma. It's just going to put the and. Okay, what does this all look like? Just compile it. Go to the next screen and compile it. Now, here is what it looks like now. I'm also, since I'm doing this as debugging, when I'm printing out, the first number that comes out after here, let's see, is, where is my dot value? It does the coins. Coins now leaves the final remainder on the stack. And I print it, print the value, I print that remainder, and then I print the number of items. So if this is working correctly, these all should have a 0 remainder, and it will tell you how many items are there. So to my eye, this looks a lot nicer than what it was before. And I was pretty happy seeing this come out. So then I went on and did the coin and bill values. Since there are actually up to 100, 1,000 of them, but if I'm doing the pennies and I want to count from 100 to 100,000, incrementing by about 100. But I wanted to do odd ones so that I could see if it worked with not being the last. And then I have a special value that's the highest value is got all denominations in it. And so I did that, and there was no way I wanted to print out 1,000 items. So I just came up with a variable sized increment to display many fewer. And so this is what it looks like, just displaying the bills with all of the change now left over here. Go through that, and there are 7. This one, the last one, has 0 cents, so that it puts a period in because it's the end of the sentence. Okay, now to put them together. This is the same thing. Look what the complexity went. It went down to 1.7. And here is everything. I don't know whether, I can't see the far right-hand side of the last line because of the pictures, so I'm just going to move it over a little bit. There are 12 items, 12 terms in that last one, and it has everything in it. Okay, so I was pretty happy with that. Very short, just for, I mean, this is all debugging code, which is why I did not include it in the MCC count. But to me, this was much nicer alternative to Paul's formatting. But he didn't do it word by word either. He did it by a table, by using a table. I thought it pretty simple, so I did give it a shot. It isn't as easy to debug something that's built around a table, because you have to access items in that table, and you've got to get that part working right before you can trust it to the rest of the application code. And I rediscovered that SwiftForth puts a null character at the end of each string. That took me a little bit to figure it out. So I went ahead, and this is the first part, creating a table that's just the divisor for the slash mod and the singular and plural strings. So the first 2 words are to skip, ignore a string, and to skip a whole entry that has, it's going to skip past the cell and then the two strings. And then the second one, to print an entry, has the do count type to print it out, and then plural skips the first one and prints the second one, singular. Okay. And I do the same test to see whether it's n here is going to be, it's already shown to be non-zero. So I can say minus that was plural. All the align and the cell plus and char plus, char are totally screen of 2, and here is the whole problem done in a single screen. Now, I don't think it'll fit on a single block, but a single screen. John, is it big enough that you can read, or shall I enlarge it some? It's good?
Yeah, I think it's readable. It's readable on this end.
It's good.
Okay. I'm going to go back and compile this. I turned off the warning about redefining words in SwiftForth so that I could, just compile this and it would look normal. And then oh, come on. Hey. Control A, and then C, and V. Okay, and since I'm using exactly the same display, this display word is exactly the same one as before. I just copied it. So this list is exactly the same as the other one. And because of the complexity of some of this stuff, it's a little bit higher, 2.6. But it's still fairly straightforward. The interesting thing about this, the first ones that I did, word by word, each word, each denomination knew whether you could have more than one of it. So I 1s and 2s and 5 and 10 and so on. But this one, in order to have just a single dot denomination, I have to allow everything to be plural. One of the after effects of that, I realized, was that, oh, I could go through, comment out different coins. Say I don't have any $2 bills. So if I commented out that line, and I don't have any $50, I comment out that line. I have to recompile the whole table again. And recompile everything based on that table. But now I get results that don't have any $2 bills in them and don't have any $50 in them. It's all, so now there are multiple quarters, 3/4.
And now you're qualified to go to work at Jack in the Box.
Right, yeah. So anyway, I do find that the table method is more flexible and more interesting, but it's not as easy to start off with as the single word. Here I had to figure out my table and then start making the words that access it before going on. All of the words that access the table are here on this screen. Nothing up here knows anything about the table except its beginning address. And I don't know, some people might find this interesting to have you tuck fetch while, I mean, that's a pretty short loop to be doing all this stuff. Denomination takes an address and a number, returns the remainder and the updated address, the address past the one that it just did. Okay, that's about all I've got. And I put these four, I've got Paul's file and the files that I wrote earlier, which are a lot rougher than this one. And then this file itself, the link to it is in the file, so I don't know. Dave, should I send you the PDF?
Yes,
You-
please send me your slides with that with those links in them. The whole
I'll
slide.
send. I did it as a PDF file because not too many people can handle a PowerPoint. That's the only way I can get it out of Google is a PowerPoint.
That would be
So
fine.
It's set up as a PDF. I'll send that to you.
Excellent.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, well, one comment. Okay. The problem is that with English, okay? English is a bad language.
Yeah.
If you do it in Chinese, it will be much simpler because the
Ah.
language is simple.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Ting. That's what I expect. Anybody else? All right then.
Well, I was thinking, maybe having, quarters, nickels, and dimes, may not be the best choice of denominations. So, another area of investigation that I thought of is what would be the most efficient set of coins to use in giving like change for, for $1 for all the possible possibilities.
Interesting take on the problem. Yeah.
Mhm.
I offer it. This was the first code that I've actually written and run in almost 10 years since working with green arrays. And it was kind of interesting and obsessive at one point to actually get back in and doing it, but I'm done. I'm over with it. It'll sit for a while.
So John, let me ask you, with respect to green arrays, I read somewhere that Charles Moore was really good at designing chips, but he didn't pay attention to the interface talkback between adjacent wires. Is that why green arrays didn't get very far?
No, green arrays didn't get very far entirely because of money politics. It had nothing to do with the technology.
And now
Yeah.
today,
Pardon?
what's going on today?
Greg would probably have to answer that, but stuff is moving ahead.
Oh.
I sort of think there might be something to talk about at fourth day in November. I'm not really sure. Interesting thing is with Chuck out in the desert, being his loner self, he's not taking much interest in what's going on with green arrays, other than his academic interest in it, of course. But in terms of day-to-day work, not very much. There isn't any income coming in. We had I think Greg talked about our golden parachute investor last year. And so things are moving ahead very slowly. The interesting piece of it is that it's not moving ahead based on color forth. Greg is much more comfortable with his variant of polyfourth, which he calls sane fourth, thinking most other fourths are pretty insane. And so where Bill Minch and I had put a virtual machine simulator, editor, emulator, whatever you want to call it, onto the chip, onto the green arrays chip, so that you could run an E4th or anything else on it from external memory. Greg has done that with SaneForth, and so now he's got a whole development environment with the chip built in that's actually running in a version of polyfourth. And that, the what do I want to call it? The hardware simulation, the hard sim, never ran on the chip because it wasn't fast enough. It always is run on a PC, but it's running ColorForth on the PC. And Greg is porting that over, and he's finding a speed up of between 2 and 10 times over the ColorForth, the overhead that was in ColorForth. So he's quite excited about going ahead, and we have a list of additional features that we would like to see in it, and they're gradually being implemented. And I guess I'd better stop there, or somebody might get upset.
I think that'd be great. If you could communicate with Greg to ask him if he's interested in presenting in August, that'd be
Kevin, there won't be
appreciated.
anything for August.
Okay.
November would be the first.
All right.
Fourth
Well,
of November.
I have a sneaking suspicion that we may be having virtual fourth day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Since we're all old geezers, and I don't know how Stanford
No.
is going to feel about us being on campus. They weren't ecstatic about us being on campus before the
The
COVID.
virtual fourth day is about right.
Right. So in regard to Stanford, the plans are to have half the students on campus during the fall, but that might not actually happen, given the virus situation. So next month, Stanford's going to make a decision if they're going to open the campus at all during the fall quarter. So I think it would be good to plan for a virtual fourth day this year.
Yeah, I think that's probably where we'll wind up. Dave posted a chat message about the virtual Vintage Computer Festival. You want to say 2 words about that, or 2 seconds about that?
Yeah, I just looked up the Vintage Computer Festival, and although they were planning to have an in-person version, they've now have a virtual version. It's going to be next Saturday from 9 o'clock in the morning to 6 p.m. and they have a whole schedule of speakers and topics that look really interesting. And some of the people that we know in the fourth community are going to be presenting as well. So the URL that I left in there gives you the schedule. It's a free event, so why not? And they may be also doing a vendor portion as well, but they haven't figured that out yet. So so if you're not doing anything next Saturday, on my birthday, by the way, that might be something for you to consider.
Happy birthday, Dave. And it has been suggested that we now take a break. Is 3 minutes enough for anybody? Anybody objecting? Speak up. Okay, 3 minutes on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.